didn't get to do my early morning post. As you can see, I'm still not in my normal home, so I'm in this home, which I'm very grateful to be. And yeah, so I'm going to be doing this video here again. Maybe tomorrow I'll get, my electricity on. Maybe not. It's Mexico, and, it happens when it happens. There's not just a switch that you can flip like they do in the United States. So I want to thank you all for bearing with me and being with me. I hope that you do show up here tonight, since I didn't do that early morning announcement as I usually do. Tonight we're going to be talking about what did you learn about love. Talking about, there you are, Epic. How are you doing this evening? I'm glad that you're here. I didn't get to make still at my mate's place. That's right. Thank you so much. Yes. Down here in Mexico, I don't know about where you are, but down, in America, when the lights get turned off, all they have to do is flip a switch. I have to wait for them to receive my payment because, hey, Rusty, codependency. Yes, girl. Well, it's going to be a 3-part series. I'm not feeding y'all all of it at once, but I will be slowly giving you the tidbits. So I'm glad that you all are here, because it's kind of a learned behavior and a lot of people don't know. John London, hey, it's good to see you. Good to see you all. John London, Kim, thank you. Jason, Stillwell, and Amy and Rusty, and Epic, of course. So I'm so glad y'all are here. I'm so glad to see you all. We are going to talk about codependency this evening. Yes, it is. Greg, it's been a while. Yes, it has. I haven't seen Dawn in a while either, but anyway, happy Monday. No, down here in Mexico, it's not like America. I don't know about over there, but here, somebody actually has to come over. Yes, I do have my friend, my Grinch. Somebody actually has to come over and turn the power back on. And so since I made that payment, what happened was I went to make the payment in the kiosk because I let it get late. So I went to make it in this kiosk, and the kiosk refused to taste. It is. So the kiosk refused to take part of the payment. Now in America, when it doesn't, when you can't get it, well then what do? They just add it onto your next bill. It wasn't very much, So I'm thinking, okay, well, it'll be on my next bill, I guess. Lesson to self. It's not going to be on the next bill. They take this stuff seriously. So even if it's a little bit, they will turn your lights off if you don't pay the whole thing. And I would have paid it. I was sitting there trying to pay the whole thing, but I just took the exact amount and it wouldn't take some of it, or a little bit of it. So in the future, I have another plan, but I'm definitely going to make sure the whole thing gets paid. This has been quite a fiasco. Hey, Actus, it's good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, please stop talking and writing for 20 minutes as the King of Greece has just entered the live, straight from the King's 2,344 meter tower. Yes, I am so blessed with good friends. And this is one of my stupid human tricks. And I want you all to understand, sometimes we do stupid human tricks. I did a stupid human trick. I'm thinking, I was talking to another friend. She said a friend got his cut off, for cheaper than that, because we just don't realize it. I missed you too, Actus. We just don't realize it when we're, I thought they're just going to add it on. I will not do this again. I got to spend the whole weekend without electricity, but you're right, John London, is having good friends. I mean, I'm so blessed to have good friends, and everything, so that I'm not stuck. Thank you. I'm glad you validate that, because, yeah. So, Enigma, I don't know why you ask questions like that, but you're welcome to stay, but you're not allowed to talk like that on here. We're going to talk about the topic today. The topic is going to be codependency. And just like we talked about addiction last week, about how a lot of people don't understand what codependency is, like we talked about with addiction, is a lot of people think it's just drugs and alcohol, but as we explored, it was more, right? And so codependency is too. And, first thing today, when I did get on social media, was I was seeing about an actress who, she died 36 years old. And when I was in that CODA group, I was sent to the CODA group after my divorce, and I didn't know what a codependency relapse looked like. It's pretty obvious when we look at most addictive relapses or with the other addictive relapses. What do they look like? But codependency and love addiction are so close together. Good afternoon, Dominic. Thank you, Actus. More and more your beauty is upgraded. No limits to the beauty of Stacy. Well, thank you very much, Actus. So codependency and love addiction. A lot of people don't acknowledge those things because just like we had to eat and can be an addiction. It's when we do that breathing. It's that regulation and regeneration, the regeneration of cells and the regulation of the breath. And when we regulate our breath, we aren't stressing. Too blessed to be stressed. Dream Tooth. I learned friendship begins with an attitude of cooperation. Love grows in many ways. Yes, but a lot of people love somebody, but do they love themselves? Thank you, Kim. Thank you. So a lot of people love other people, but they don't love themselves. And then we may feel like we're left wanting, right? We may feel left wanting. I know that I did, and I would play these games in my codependency because I was afraid to fully give in love because I was afraid of losing it, right? And that's because I didn't realize that the love was in me. But it took me a long time to figure that out. Has anybody in here been afraid of losing love, losing somebody? And so, when we talk about all the things that I'm specializing in coaching, there's addiction, codependency, and grief. And it made total sense when I heard Dr. Drew and Melody Beattie say that addiction is at the top. That's how we cope with things, And then codependency is underneath that wanting to accept. You understand that, Rusty? Thank you very much. So then we look at this grief is underneath that, the fear of losing somebody. And this actress that I was talking about who passed this morning, I was looking at interviews because I didn't know who she was. She was a child actress, only 36 years old. But what I was saying was when I was in that codependency group, what happened was I thought, what does a codependent relapse look like? Then one day, this lady walked in and she had a black eye. She was in a abusive relationship. This is when we don't love ourselves. We say, oh, I love them. Why do you put up with this? But I love them. When you hear that, boy, that was a big glare, wasn't it? When you hear that, that is a big sign of codependency. But I love them. They abuse me, but I love them. Amy, I've had someone tell me I needed to fall in love with myself. It is so cool. I did get to learn to love myself because I would be so heartbroken. And I went into my coach, and I was all heartbroken. And I was like, but I looked into his eyes. The love was in his eyes. And she's like, Stacy, the love is in you. The love is in you. People are a reflection of us, And so a lot of the times, though, Angela, hopefully she'll make it in here because I know she talks about codependency and narcissism a lot. This is why codependence and narcissism attract each other because there are some commonalities but some distinct differences, is that both of them, it's like, it's all about me. Because the codependent person is the fixer. And so the narcissist needs a fixer, but the narcissist sometimes comes in with the charm as in a hero or heroine, right? They're going to help you. Girls do love like that before, but now it's reversed. I think that there's both men and women doing it. I think that, that girls do it, but I think there are men and women both who do that. Dream Tooth, announcing how I accept myself to myself. That's a healing for me. Word thinking, I cooperate with myself so love could be said be cooperation for one way. Well, accepting ourselves is really important. And with codependence, sometimes there's a manipulation that goes on there. Love is trust, plain and simple. Yeah, but sometimes people don't trust themselves and they don't know they don't trust themselves. John London. I always knew I should love myself more. It took me a while and it was rough. But I'm grateful to have a healthy self-love and boundaries and standards. Absolutely, because that is self-love, John London. It truly is. You have to have boundaries. Because when I didn't love myself and I thought I loved everyone else, I didn't have boundaries. So I became a doormat. That's sometimes what we get called when we don't love ourselves, as you get called a doormat, because we just keep people pleasing and just keep, negating ourselves. But eventually what happens is we build a resentment, because this is a learned behavior. And some of this behavior comes from, if you were a child and took care of a parent, you become a caretaker. I know many, people in the care industry that, this was what happened. All right, No Bad Adventures. We don't talk bad about men or women up in here, because we got a little of both in everyone, but we got a lot of good in everyone too here. So we don't, I don't, we don't talk bad. I don't know about modern women so much. I know the women I work with are truly amazing, and so are the men, and I think everybody's just trying to understand life on life's terms, You hope you lived in an old era. Well, they do make it look very romantic. But, in the old era, some of those old movies, people are slapping each other and stuff. You can't be slapping people today. No, Ramon, I didn't move. Well, I kind of moved just till they turned my electricity back on. But, down here, they are not getting in a hurry to do that. They're not. They don't have a switch. They just flip. They're going to have to come out and turn it on maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. So, yeah. So, learning to love ourselves isn't sometimes an easy thing to do. Nope, they ain't getting in a hurry. Oh, did I speak to you about the fixer thing, Amy? Yes, and I had somebody, I have a sponsee, and, she's, like me, struggled with addiction and codependency, but she's just learning about the codependency. Modern love can be a minefield. Social media has more people narcissistic. Yeah, I think so too, John London. I totally agree, is that a lot of people are sharing these things, and even our kids, the kids that they watch TV nowadays, kids can be sassy on TV. Back when I was watching TV, kids could not be talking to their parents like they do nowadays. But, in a way, it's kind of good. So everything has a little good in it, and everything's got a little bad in it. It just depends. So, there's, yeah. Men have gone downhill too. It's more of a societal thing in general. Yeah. It's the standards, because the thing, the women that try to date, is that a lot of men have become, kind of like where they want the women to take care of them and stuff. But that's not all men. That's just some. But some, do. And Rusty, is it possible to have a codependent relationship with the utilities? I know, right? Yeah, this is something else. This is the first time I've ever done this, but I didn't think it was going to end up like this. I didn't think it was going to end up this way. I won't do it again for sure. Dominic, how can you be in love with yourself when you're so hard on yourself? That's how I feel. Aw, I understand that. I was like that too. I was very hard on myself, and I just wanted somebody to appreciate me, damn it. That's what it was. And I kept doing things for other people, but that was what I learned to do. As a child, I would, my mom was very helpful to people. I think men and women have both strayed from the traditional roles. I know, Epic, and it's kind of good and it's kind of bad, because I was just sharing, was it Sunday? That the women have stood up to some things. Amy, right, didn't it? We just want to be appreciated. But the thing is women couldn't even vote until 1974. So women didn't even not vote, but women couldn't get an apartment. That's what I meant to say. In America, women couldn't even get their own apartment or credit card until 1974. So maybe women have gone, they've realized I don't have to put up with stuff I didn't have to put up with. Because I think there was a lot of narcissistic ideals promoted from generation to generation in men and women, with expectations, right? Expectations. And so now people are having to learn to communicate better rather than to slip into these roles, right? Because we learned roles growing up, some of us. Our parents definitely learned roles growing up. Women rule the world. Was about damn time, Rusty. Yep. No, I'm kidding. Because we never had a woman president. I'm down here in Mexico. We got a woman president down here in Mexico. They've had women running things in Europe before, too. They have women running things in a lot of other countries. But in America, they've never had a woman get to run anything. Angela, hi Stacy. Hello. We're so glad that you made it because we're talking about codependency and narcissism tonight. And you know a lot about that. John London, I find it hard to relate with some of the values today. It's very different now, less wholesome. That's true. That's true. I don't like this casual thing that, people start. And the Dominic, indecency was very limited back then for women. I don't know what that indecency means, but women didn't get to do a lot of things. Is it better, Ramon says? Well, I think so. I don't know. But I do believe in women having, being able to get their own credit cards and being able to rent apartments. So a lot of women dealt with a lot of their roles, and men dealt with roles too. Because the man, back in the day of the roles, the men had to go to work, and that was their responsibility. Is they learned to be from fathers, or family. They learned to be the caretaker of the family, that they had a certain role, that they had to take care of the family, that was their job, and I'm not saying that it's not their job today, but they're also supposed to be able to live their life more fully and freely as well, and be able to share that plethora of emotions rather than just feel like I've gone and done my job and now I'm home, and women were taught to wait on everybody. I'm from Texas, and my great aunt used to fix the husband's plates. Now, Kim, I know you still fix the plate. I know you do. Assuming it's better she moved there. Dominic, no, I didn't say independency. Yeah, the trouble is when any group of people ascend to power too quickly, it's a process learning to wield it. John London, same Rusty. I grew up without a dependable father. See, this is the thing. And that's sad too. That is sad too. His lunch too most days. See, down in the South, we used to have to fix our husband's plates. It's like, so we were like their servants as women, and that's not, I don't think that's fair. I'm sorry. That's probably why I'm not married. But no, and not really. That's not why I'm not married. I'm not married because I'm just not. I've already bred. I don't need to get married for me. So, anyway, that's another. But, Rusty Waters, I used to love the show Alice and One Day at a Time. Right? Those were some strong women there, Alice and One Day at a Time. Jason, I think I was raised to be codependent by my mom. She's not happy I'm in school and successful because she knows I'll be Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up, Jason. Exactly. Because our parents sometimes will teach us codependency because of their own fears. You see? So, yeah, she's afraid of your success. Isn't that so sad? We really have to change things. There does have to be a change because there is evolving. I have a program on Facebook, and I'll be seeing y'all I'll be seeing y'all on Thursday night. I'll be creating that. The evolving self, because things have evolved and changed. Our kids do communicate differently. They had the cell phones. We went to people's houses. Is it better or worse? Both, I think. I don't know. But it's not going to go back to where that. So your father was very controlling and growing up with him. Oh, forget about it. It was terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that, Dominic. I totally understand. My dad was controlling too. But he felt like he had to be because the way that he grew up. And I get it. And I'm not blaming him. But I did have to do some healing work around that. I can't just think my way out of healing. And I couldn't just think my way. I would trying. And so I would try to do different things. There's attraction and repulsion in this electromagnetic universe. And so some of the things that would be like, I'm not going to do like that. I'm not going to do like that. And some of the more I tried not to, the more I did in a way. And see, we really have to, when we go within and start learning how to love ourselves and learn what we want, because it can be imposed on us. I get it. It can be imposed on us on what our parents want for us sometimes, and sometimes they don't want as much for us as we may want. And we may not be able to realize it, because they may want to feel justified. Well, this is what I did when I grew up. Maybe they went to college and maybe they didn't. And maybe if they didn't go to college, they really don't care if you go to college because they're going to feel like you're going above her. And that's sad. And talking to people nowadays, probably next week, I was going to do that this week, but probably next week, I'm going to be doing something about, our generation now, because a lot of times parents created this codependency, creating their kids to have obligations, creating obligations. Somebody else I'm dealing with right now, the mom is like, having expectations that this kid's supposed to be at her beck and call, and the kid's 30-something years old. When our kids are 30-something years old, we need to let them live our lives. They're not supposed to be taking care of us at 30 years old. They're supposed to be doing their own thing, and so there are some parents that are very uncomfortable letting go, and they need to, and that's developing that codependency to where they're shaming kids for wanting to live their life. Dominic, plus technology today has gotten more lazier for these kids. Everything is handed to them on a silver platter. It does seem like that, doesn't it? Angela, I grew up with narcissistic and codependent. They were over-controlling and possessive. You asked some great questions and you bring up some great points, and I don't know if you did that I think you've done that healing process, and it takes different amounts of time for everybody. But the reality is that healing from that stuff isn't going to happen like overnight and a one and done, because it was imprinted, ingrained, and embedded. So I'm going to read my notes a little bit, but I'm loving your comments up in here too. So Jason, it is sad because I have to compartmentalize my life. I have to keep my lady friend away for the protection of the relationship because my mother doesn't. Jason, I know that. I have seen that before. I have seen that. He doesn't live with his mom though, Epic. You live with your lady friend, don't you? You have to sometimes, Amy, I got legally disowned because I went against what my family, yes, see, that's conditional love. That's conditional love. And what did you say, Ralph? Let me see. I don't think I saw it. Oh, I had to get away from her. It was so easy to push her buttons and get her angry. Oh, yeah, that is unhealthy. I apologize that I missed your comment. That is unhealthy. I'm so glad that you all are here. I didn't mean to skip your comment. See, this is why I have notes here and everything else, because I miss some things. So my bad. I apologize. So, yes, you have to get away. Sometimes you have to go no contact. If you set boundaries, you are very welcome. If you set boundaries and then people don't observe your boundaries, you may have to go no contact. You may have to go no contact. Thank you, Kim. I know he was pretty wanting me to see that comment. I know. I was taught to do everything so that I didn't need a woman and have someone because I want to. That's a good way to be taught. And I appreciate that. And I know that you do, that you do that. So a lot of those people were taught to take care of somebody else all the time. And so they think that that's their duty and their job, but it's supposed to be mutual, you see. So a lot of people are with that left wanting and longing and feel like that if my bird's like under the table here on my leg. So playing peekaboo. So, but a lot of times, we can have sometimes the little girls will be idolizing their dads, and sometimes the boys need the nurturing from their moms, and sometimes the girls need the nurturing from their moms too. They need somebody to support them. And I talked the other week about how sometimes people have never had support and don't know what support means in their life, and when they do get support, they're afraid that somebody is going to want something back, because some parents have created that obligation to where people are afraid to share thoughts, ideas, and share these things because this obligation has been created, or this low sense of self. Compartmentalize. I relate and appreciate everyone in the chat for putting into words what is sometimes hard to. I do too. I do too, John London. I love this group. Y'all are amazing. Did your parents respect your boundaries while you were living with your parents, Stacy? Well, my mom wanted to be friends with me. You know, we were more friends. She says we grew up together because she was so young when she had me. You know, she was 18 when I was born. So we had blurred, there was no boundaries. I didn't even get to learn boundaries. So in a sense, I also didn't get to have autonomy, you know, because my mom would tell me I was very codependent and enmeshed with my mother, you know, because she took care of me, you know, and so it wasn't like she ignored me. I mean, but she sometimes did ignore me because she had her own things. But her enmeshment, because my mom had her own pain. You know, her mom had abandoned her as a child. So she didn't want me to feel abandoned, so she went to the other extreme. So this is oftentimes what happens, is that people will go to the extreme because they don't want. So she was still operating on the don't want. So, you know, she was raised with that codependency and everything. So no, yes and no. I had to fall in line with what my mom said. I didn't get to, you know, my first love, I was like non-permitted, you know, to experience the first love, you know, and everything. And like somebody else was saying about not being able to have, Jason, not being able to have a love, you know, and she did, and sometimes encourage love, but it was the wrong like sometimes it was the wrong people, you know, and everything. So there was a lot of things there. Yeah. And what Jason's saying about sometimes mothers not liking them to have a girlfriend, that's you know, something too. And so yeah, yeah. So no, I didn't learn boundaries, and so there was no respect of boundaries there. No. I didn't even know how to have boundaries. She was all up in my business all the time. I'm not saying it was good or bad, but she was all up in my business. Sometimes it might have been good that I didn't get in as much trouble as I would have if she wouldn't have been all up in my business. But at the same time, you know, the autonomy issue of learning things my way, you know. Rusty, that's you. Yeah. Yeah. Jason Stillwell. No, I took care of my grandmother who had Alzheimer's oh my goodness, for 14 years. I was only able to leave the house on Sundays, and I'm a full-time student. At the moment, I'm stuck. I may live with my lady soon. Okay. That's a lot. I believe so too, Amy. So let me see. I don't want to miss the comments. Yes. Ramon's got a good mom. Epic. Hey man, we all make choices. Do us a wilt. Yes. Brutal, Kim. Hazer, did you have... Okay, whatever. Angela, narcissist and codependents are very invasive. Exactly. Thank you, Hazer. Y'all are fun. I can't believe I beat you to that one. That's cute. So I'm going to read some of this, and I'm still looking at your comments. But yes, Angela, they are invasive. You know, narcissists and codependents are invasive. Because codependents will get mad. They want to help you, but they get mad. Because then, you know, that's how they see their worth. But if they don't see their worth within themselves, they're eventually going to get mad. I talked to somebody this morning who's admitted codependent, and she said, my hair is all natural, but that's not what this topic is today. That's why I missed your comment. So, all right, Hazer, you're about to be out of here, honey. Be nice in here. So, see, this is why, there you go, because I lose track of what I'm saying and when I see that. Thank you, Kim. So, yeah, bye, Hazer. So, yeah, let me look at my notes here. Zap. Thank y'all. Kim's good at that. You're too epic. But Kim and I, we're like this. She's not gonna let, she's like, So our thing is what did we learn? Because that's what happens, growing up in the house. What are we learning? Narcissist. I know, right, Angela? Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so the codependence and narcissist. So with the codependency, sometimes people say, when am I going to quit attracting this? But sometimes codependencies are trying to heal other people from their wounds, and it's not solicited because not everybody that needs help wants help. Not that way. Sometimes they want help, as in financially helping them, or they want you to give them a ride or five. They may ask for one ride, and you may be stuck giving them five because you don't have boundaries. Does that happen to anybody up in here? Sometimes people will be like, hey, can you give me a ride? Then when they get you out, they're like, can I go here? Can I go there? And instead of having boundaries, saying, no, I thought we were just going here. I'm sorry, I can't do that. Sometimes people end up saying, I couldn't get out of there. I had to keep, and then we get a resentment because they didn't respect your time. But, oh, yeah, see, they don't respect your time. So this is what the thing is learning how to set those boundaries. Because people know with me is sometimes I go along for the ride and I may get tired, but I'm going to say something. I will say something. Yeah, learning how to set those boundaries. And we can set loving boundaries, but sometimes when we weren't allowed to express a dislike even as a child, right, Angela? When we weren't allowed to express a dislike, we were told we were ungrateful. And all of this could lead to codependence because we're trying to appear overly grateful then because we're trying to prove we're grateful. Jason Stillwell, you have some of the best moderators. They don't time out or block for petty reasons, but if someone gets out of line, they're gone. Absolutely. I do have the best moderators. Thank you, Kim and Epic, because y'all are amazing. They got us here. So yes, make sure that we give them hearts, y'all. If you can smash your heart buttons for the moderators. Best in the West. That's right. So what did you learn? Because what we learned becomes the lens through which we experience the world. This is our personal, what we call our personal reality. Okay. So it meaning the way you see the world through your perception, what we see with our eyes, hear with our ears, smell with our nose, taste with our mouth. And I was telling a story here a while back about somebody who, when they smelled rice, it took them back to being in the war, and things like this. So sometimes these smells can take us back. I was walking down the street yesterday and I saw a cigarette laying on the ground, and I thought about my son. He liked to smoke cigarettes. So it's amazing how much data is in our brain and how much recall we can have when we're not trying to. Absolutely, toxic parents want you to give them appreciation and admiration all the time, right? And they will. They'll be breaking their arm trying to pat their backs and stuff, and you can never tell them thank you enough, right? So that's toxic parents too, So coming down to our perceptions, everything that you know about the world today came from an experience. Here he comes, y'all. Everything you know about the world today came from an experience you had yesterday or in the past. If you learned what would make people happy, you probably did more of that. And if you learned what made people unhappy, you probably did less of that. So other people became our moderators, right? Outside of ourselves. Not like Kim and Epic, but different. Thank you, Amy. He's half naked, but he likes it that way. But I'm about to get him some hormones at the end of the year. But anyway, so everything that okay, so let me catch up with myself so I can be mindful of your time. So how we learn to receive love, acceptance, nurturing, or what we lacked in that area. That's kind of what has us, doing what we do in life. Grinch is so sweet. He does. Talk about a codependent relationship, though. I know, right? So, what I like now is when we think about the words of Aristotle. Yeah, he does look a little different. Yeah, I got to get him some hormones because he's 10. I didn't want to get him hormones when he was 1 and started plucking. I don't like giving him things, but he's 10 and I'm going to be getting a lot of stuff together for his health records to move to another country. So I may as well go ahead. I think at 10 we can go ahead and let him have some hormones because he doesn't have a lady. So he gets a little uptight and plugs. So when we heal, it's like in the words of Aristotle, and I'd like us to think about this, is when we're in our codependence, we're trying to anticipate and strategize what another person's needs are over our own. We don't know how to regulate ourselves. That's why at the end of these talks, we always regulate. And why, when I'm working with people, I suggest, single people, it's like, take yourself on a date. Take yourself to do this, because codependence will, like, when they're with their friends or their dates or somebody, they'll be like, or sometimes their families. I had one person, they admitted to being codependent, and their family would call them, and they knew that when their family called, their family was going to want money, or their family was going to want to talk to, they were going to call drunk and talk to them forever. And this is why we need boundaries. Loving, healthy boundaries. Showing off. Yep, he is. So, So Jason, over the past few years, I started studying gaslight and realized, and that's what these people do, gaslight and keep you under their control. Yeah. Codependents try to make an obligation. I used to do it, and I'm not proud of that, but I can't save my face or our faces and our behinds too, because it's a learned behavior to create an obligation. If I do this for you, and so sometimes it was always the opposite too, was when I did learn to date. My dad had told me before I started dating, he'd be like, Stacy, now take your own money, because if he spends any money on you, he's going to expect something. So I didn't allow people to gift me, because that expectation, I had to learn to receive, because I was afraid of expectations. So this is part of codependency too, is I felt like I always had to be the giver. But then I would get mad because we didn't get to do what I wanted to do. But guess what? I didn't know what I wanted to do. After 6 months of being with somebody, when you go out with somebody, your friends or your partners, and you're like, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. What do you want to do? And they're like, okay, well, we'll do this. So then every time, we're giving our power away with each time we don't speak up and know what we want in life. So what we're doing is, in essence, depending on somebody else to entertain us in a way in codependency. We don't know that, and we're not going to say that. But it's about other people, entertaining us to a degree. But then we get mad after 6 months, and it's like, well, what do how can we always do what you want to do? And it's like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. I just want to do something different, and it's not fair. But that's because we were shut down. Yes, Angela, exactly. I did suppress negative emotions like anger and fear while I was codependent. And how did I heal that? I had to learn to feel my feelings. I've brought that feeling wheel out before. It's not here in this apartment, but she gave that feeling wheel to me. But I brought that feeling wheel out. I had to learn there was a plethora of emotions, because growing up, I didn't realize there were so many emotions that I could have. And this is what I mean about living a full life. When we suppress our emotions as a child because we're afraid of our parents getting either mad at us if we express our emotions, or we're afraid that we're going to let them down if we express our emotions, or we're afraid that or if we do express our emotions and they're ignored. So these are things that make us not validate our own emotions. And as a codependent, we will try to get other people to validate our feelings, something that we lacked and longed for. But the reality is, until we learn how to recognize our own emotions, we're still going to feel lacking and longing. Did that answer that? Epic. People use these terms a lot, but ultimately, past childhood, we should take responsibility for who we spend our time with. Well, now we have a choice, but what happens in the childhood, the reason the childhood is important for if we want to do healing work is is that it did affect us from the ages of 1 to 12. So it's from the ages of 1 to 12, we learn to adapt to these things. Now, sometimes people, like nowadays, people have more autonomy. They know what they want and they don't want. But our parents didn't even get to experience what they wanted and didn't want either, a lot of them. Some of them did, but some of them didn't. Some of them had to fall into those roles, those categories, and those things. Even with the toxic masculinity, is that, sometimes men that I know with my dad, this was the case, is that his dad used to run around cheating on his mom, and he took my dad with him. So this is some toxicity, and sometimes men have taught their young men to do this. Is that, to be a man you got to do this, you got to do that, and that's not good. Where women can do the same thing too. Women have done the same thing too. They go out. They're like, well, we couldn't even go out when I was younger. I couldn't do this. I couldn't even get a driver's license. I couldn't even do this. So you go ahead and you do this. You weren't allowed to express yours either. Yeah. And still today, I was talking to someone who's codependent this morning, working with somebody, and what happens is there's this continued fight with someone in her life. And so it's the same thing. So what happens is this person's codependent, and they keep doing and supplying and whatever the other person needs. And then finally, after a while, the person, like, what happened, what started it? And I explained to this person that this wasn't the whole thing. So what started it was that she was supposed to pick up her daughter. Hi, Mom. She was supposed to pick up her daughter, and so her daughter, she misunderstood, and she was an hour late picking up her daughter, who's a grown person. So they've created this codependent relationship, because a lot of times people, they'll create that, and I tell her, you created it. Amy, my mother would tell me I had no right to be angry if she upset me. It was never her fault. Aw. Yeah, negating your feelings. That's totally gaslighting. It's totally gaslighting. Just to let you know what that is. When you have feelings and somebody tells you you're not feeling what you're feeling, that's gaslighting. So, in this argument, that happened is, what we brought up is that her daughter was mad at her because she was an hour late. And instead of, her saying, you know what, sorry, I apologize, I misunderstood. And, I hate that I was an hour late, Instead, she defended herself. She's like, well, if I wasn't doing this, and this, because she does everything. She does everything in the house. And she's not like leaving the responsibility. And so I'd work with people who sometimes they do everything. And I'm like, why are you doing everything? And they feel like they have to. And she feels like she has to. And so, see, that there's these terms. And I didn't know what gaslighting was either until I did, Amy. Have I ever had any disease or assault? Yes. I would say that I had because when I was 21, I had a small cancer. So I probably that, and then every once in a while I still get a little sickness, and it's skin, and so I think that it, sometimes. But yes, I had cancer at 20, almost 21, and I'm sure it was from a lot of the stuff I didn't understand that it manifested, because we all got the cancer cells. But Ramon, if Kim doesn't do it, it won't get done. Right? So sometimes, and then what happens is when we're doing everything, then we know we're doing everything, but the thing is that asking for help, a lot of people are afraid to ask for help because they're afraid that they're going to look like too much, or that it's not going to be enough, or they've trained people to think, I can handle it, because their biggest fear is not being able to handle it, because they had to handle it all their life, So these tapes, Sula, I learned marriage and love were violent, dangerous, and a trap. I thought all the girls when I was a kid were crazy, pretending to be brides at school. Yeah, I don't know. Marriage can, it can be blissful, just like everything. We can find bliss in things, and we can find not bliss in things, And so Some people that's what they want and what they need. Some people don't need, to do that. And some people it's faith, based on their faith. And so I respect all that, Jason Stillwell. I know all about that. I never expressed my feelings not wanting to disappoint my parents, or I did things to gain their acceptance, and all I got was angry. Yes, yes. Because if you didn't learn to get your own autonomy, this is the thing, is that we were taught to be trained, and that's what I mean. We don't have our own autonomy if we're trying to please our parents, if we're trying to please our partner, if we're trying to please our children, if we're trying to please everybody. Then we're being people pleasers, and that's part of the biggest signs of codependency, caretaking. I got to take care of everybody, because that might have been a role that we learned as a child, that if we didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. And so then we start doing it, but we get resentful, and resentful is a resent feeling. So we get mad because we didn't have boundaries. And that's because we didn't learn the boundaries. So it's very frustrating. It puts us back to that childish state. We end up sometimes behaving childishly. My person this morning knew that she behaved like a child. I said, oh, isn't that it? It's because she got defensive. And so she threw up all this other stuff. And I pointed that out to her. I said, well, you threw up the cat box, you threw up this, you threw up that, when the real problem wasn't even addressed. The real problem was that, if you'd have taken ownership and just said, I apologize, I misunderstood for being an hour late, and left it at that, you didn't have to get into, we didn't have to get into all of this. But in codependency, when we're taught we have to keep doing, then we get tired. You get tired. So I had to learn to delegate some things, to be saying, hey, would you do this for me? Then I had to learn to be rejected. Because that's the thing with codependence too, is that's why a lot of codependent people don't want to set boundaries. Is that maybe they saw conflict and confrontation, like Angela and Jason, is that you couldn't disagree. And so that usually led to conflict and confrontation. So a lot of people are afraid of conflict and confrontation. And I was too, because I didn't see healthy disagreements modeled for me, so learning how to be rejected. Epic. I don't know the details of your situation, but we all have a choice. It's bedtime and I need to seize the duvet. Well, I'm glad that you showed up, Sula, and I hope that you will subscribe to the channel and that you hit that like button if you like this content. And I hope to see you again. I'll be back on here Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. So it's good to see you, Sula, and I hope that this is helpful. If you like, you could watch the replay, or I'll be back Wednesday with more information on this. And I really do hope you'll breathe, darling, because we just do the breathing. So just take a deep breath in before you go to bed. Hold it. And release. Oh, yay! Thank you so much, Sula. Hope you sleep well. Get you some blessed and regenerated rest. All right, so I lost my space here, y'all. Let me catch up. So does anybody have any questions while I'm catching up or anything? Is this making sense? And yeah. Have y'all had that lady hollering at you here on YouTube that says, don't say, does this make sense? I hate those commercials. I had to learn to say no, and while it caused a headache for a moment, there's a wonderful... Yes, isn't there, Jason Stillwell? Yes, no is a complete answer. No, thanks. Thank you, Sula. You're welcome. Angela, codependents want to be right all the time and pretend to be perfect to hide shame, because perfect people don't make mistakes and don't have to feel shame. Absolutely, but you know what? We're all fallible. See, that's not, and what happens in that, right, Angela, is that people are afraid to make mistakes, and they're afraid to own their mistakes. And I know I used to be afraid to own my mistakes. You know, I used to be afraid to look stupid. I used to be afraid to own my mistakes. I used to be afraid to, because I was afraid of getting in trouble. Right, Jason? Afraid of getting in trouble as an adult, getting in trouble. Because there always was a good guy and a bad guy in the story, in that case. where saying no, like Jason was saying, it gives you freedom. There's not a good guy or a bad guy. There's just me saying no. It doesn't mean that I have to get mad at somebody to say no, or anything like that. Sula, I need to ask, how do you stop your bird not pooping all over the house? Or do they go to the cage for the toilet? Always wondered. Well, here, this bird isn't used to being here, so it's not so bad. The bird usually will poop on me. Somebody mentioned in the live the other night, because I have shirts that I call my statue shirts, right, Grinch? And you know how birds poop on statues. So I have these shirts, and the bird will go on the shirts sometimes. When we're at home, the bird has more freedom and, is real familiar with the house. So the bird may hang out in the kitchen, at the sink and stand on the spigot. And thankfully it goes in the sink and I can clean the sink out. But, and sometimes it stands on its cage, and I put these papers on the floor by the cage so that when it poops by the cage, then it just falls to the ground. Yeah. And then sometimes when we're laying around, there's this blanket, and the bird will go to the side of the blanket and drop right there. Ramon, if you don't make mistakes, you never learn. Absolutely, absolutely. And some people, that's why they get stuck, is that like they're in that flight, fight, and freeze. And that freeze is usually about the fear of making a mistake, right? Is the fear of making a mistake. Because we're not perfect. And I had to learn that, I can make mistakes. I can make mistakes because I used to be afraid to do things, and So yeah. So when I was talking about those philosophers, because the philosophers, I love them. They didn't have a lot of the stuff that we that stimulation from the entertainment, from the distractions, right? They didn't have as many distractions as we have today. So I love philosophy. So Aristotle said, it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it, right? Now, a lot of codependents, didn't know this, because a lot of codependents had narcissism in their life too. The narcissistic and codependent relationships go together, and they want to protect that fear of of not looking stupid. I told y'all I used to be afraid of looking stupid. But so when we can understand that it's okay that we don't agree with each other. See, the codependents and the narcissist are both, that's the thing that's in common, is both of them are afraid of making a mistake or somebody not agreeing with them. Their way has to be, it's rigid. It's rigid. You're welcome, Amy Roker. Phil, all your... Yes. Thank you, Angela, for, that support for Amy, because, Amy's amazing, too. You both are. I know my clock does freak us out. It's not my clock, but, I know. Hey, beautiful mama. Grinchy loves you too. There you go, Epic. I like that. The clock moves backwards. That's why I look so young. Absolutely. Thank you. So to be able to be all right when people... Thank you, Sula. Oh, shucks, y'all. I know, right? So, to not have people agree, or me to have to agree with other people, that is autonomy, right? That's autonomy. That's being able to be ourselves. Because I know when I was in my codependence, I listened to a lot of conversations and I would wonder, where did I fit in? And I really didn't feel like I fit in. And I really wasn't listening, because I was too busy thinking of, what will I say? What could I say? What should I say? And then, it's a sign you may be codependent. It's not a definite sign, but when you sit down or walk away and said, I should have said this, I should have said that. I used to should on myself a lot when I was codependent. That was probably one of the signs that the therapist saw, because they'd be like, I should have did this, because it was people pleasing, because I was trying to manipulate people in my codependency. I'm sorry, but that's the truth of it. Is even codependents try to manipulate, because when you're people pleasing, you're trying to make people like you. But do you like yourself? And usually that's the way it comes down to, because when people leave us, we're afraid that, they didn't like us. Yes, you're right. That's good, Sula. The bird does shoot on me because you're right. That shooting sounds like that word, doesn't it? It's okay. No worries. No worries. Yeah, stop shooting on yourself. That's what my therapist told me. Why do high school counselors actually do for students? I think that they catch students sometimes in abusive, a lot of students will get in abusive relationships, and stuff, even in high school. They'll get into abusive and controlling relationships. And there's females that abuse males too. So it goes both ways. There's male abusing females and females abusing males. And sometimes that can be disastrous, but it can start that young as in high school. Also, if kids are experiencing trouble with drugs, and because drugs, peer pressure, things like that, I hope that they do that. I don't know that. I didn't talk to the counselors in high school, so yeah. I didn't hardly talk to any grown-ups in high school. I was high in high school, so it comes, okay, let me find my spot. So Aristotle. So also there was what F. Scott Fitzgerald said, right? Is holding two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time. Is being able to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time. See, we tend to, in codependency and narcissism, go from one extreme to the other. And neither one is the codependent will try to understand the narcissist, but the narcissist does not try to understand the codependent. You have to understand, the narcissist says what they say, and that's the way that it is. The narcissist will continue to fight with you to find proof, to make sure that they've proved. The codependent is trying to prove something too, but it's not the same thing that the narcissist is trying to prove. The codependent is trying to prove that they're enough, but they don't feel it inside, so they never can prove it. Mom is a baby boomer, and Jason Stillwell. I always felt like I never fit in, but one of the great things about getting older is when you realize I'm better off not fit. Exactly, Jason. Sometimes I'm happy when there's not many people who don't like me, but when somebody doesn't like me, it's usually that it's a good thing that they don't like me, because we don't fall in the same. It's not that they're bad and I'm good, or they're good and I'm bad. It's just that we just don't relate. That's all. And if they listen to me talk, I'm going to be boring to them. And if I listen to them talk, they're boring to me. That's all. Epic. Narcissism is a metric of psychoanalysis. Everyone has an amount of it. Yes. It's when we are that 2 years old trying to get our kids are narcissistic. When my dad told me, Stacy, you're spoiled, self-centered, and da-da-da-da, that's the way we are. Because we come into this world and we know our worth when we get here. It's just these little things that happen, the rejection, and how we learn to think about something, that causes us to have these fears. Because children are all like, look at me, but then we start learning to tone it down a little bit, to not be children. And so this affects our nervous system. So when we learn how to just constrict, it affects the nervous system, and so we're not living life to the fullest. Sula, or maybe they support kids that are living in poverty or yes, exactly too. That's a great point, Sula, exactly. Kids can worry so much. It's true. I used to be security in the schools, and one of the kids one day as I was walking the hall with her, and she told me that her dad pulled a knife on her mom. And, but that was in little school. In high school, I didn't work with them, but not with the counselors. But in elementary school, I did work with kids and take them to the counselor and back and forth. And I restrained kids in elementary school sometimes because they would be acting like I did. They would be acting out. When I went to school, I'd be fighting too. Mom never had to come get me because of my fights or nothing, but I did get in fights and got in trouble. Angela, I heard that baby boomers are the most narcissistic. Yeah. I don't even remember which is which now, how old the baby boomers. I find younger generations to be far more. Yeah, because, you're going to find it in every generation. Every generation. Boomers were more selfless by nature of adversity. Yeah. And a lot of the boomers may be the codependents, like, my poor mama. Most boomers are narcissists. My parents are baby boomers. Yeah. Kim, a lot of us are. A lot of us have it, like Epic was saying. A lot of us have it to a degree because our egos, because we have to protect ourselves. So we have to think about ourselves to a degree. We do. We have to protect ourselves. That's where boundaries come from. Is that it's not all people who have boundaries are narcissists. But if we didn't have that protective mechanism for ourselves, see, the dysregulation in it is if that we be mean to others because of these things. We can, if somebody disrespects our boundaries, we still don't even have to be mean to them. We just have to not associate with them if they don't respect our boundaries, because go no contact. Because if somebody's committed, some people are committed to not respecting your boundaries, because that's how they achieve their esteem, is putting someone else down. And some people learn that. That was a learned behavior too. Sula, I don't think boomers are narcs. Well, not where I live. Could be my country. Which country are you from, Sula? You've got a lot of wisdom. And I'm thinking that it can be all generations, because some people are saying that this younger generation is, just because they speak up for themselves. And I don't think that's true either, but there are some who are, like was said earlier, some that are just trying to, present an outside facade of what things are, but all generations have tried to present. I was talking to somebody who's in their 70s last night, and that's how their home was, is everything on the outside had to look really nice. That's definitely a narcissistic house. And then on the inside, people didn't communicate with each other. People were not healthy. People didn't get to express themselves, so there's that. Labeling people narcissist is a pointless idea. Only we know ourselves. Guessing what other people's motivations are. Textbook narcissism. I don't like to label everybody narcissist. There are definitely some narcissists. I didn't even know what narcissists were up until maybe 8 years ago. Honestly, I didn't know until about 8 years ago, and I was experiencing the experience of narcissism. So it did help me to look up Dr. Romani if you suspect that you may be dealing with narcissism, because you have to do healing from narcissism. You can't just think your way out if you've been exposed to a narcissist, because they gaslight you. They tell you what you're feeling isn't real. They try to manipulate your mind to their agenda, to do what they want you to do, to lie even, to do what they want you to do. To the flying monkeys, they try to create you into what is known as a flying monkey. And so they'll try to, tell you to do certain things, then you do those things, and then they say they didn't tell you to do that. Sometimes they tell you, that you said something that you didn't say, and then when you tell them they said something, they'll say they didn't say that. So it's really important with narcissists. A lot of people carry around recorders after a while, because they're going to try to make you think you're crazy. That's what we call crazy making in narcissism. So they'll, that's that craziness. So it really is crazy, and people won't understand what it is until they get to look at Dr. Romani or Dr. Les Carter or somebody like that who can explain exactly how narcissism works, because you will not have your value if you're in a relationship. You will feel less of a person, because a narcissist values money a whole lot. And they definitely create those obligatory relationships to where you're obligated. I don't think technology is the reason why generation is. I don't know. Anyone can have it. Anyone can have it. And it depends in large part of how did we grow up. Were we able to express ourselves? Or were we shut down? Or, in people's trauma, because even the people that are narcissists have a fear behind all of that. Now, they're probably not going to change. Dr. Sam Varkin is an admitted narcissist, and most narcissists, unless are not going to, you can't say to a narcissist, I think you might have narcissistic traits, because most narcissists are going to say, I think you have narcissistic traits. That's what's going to happen. So you have to be very careful when labeling a narcissist. You don't want to tell a narcissist, somebody you suspect may be narcissistic. Bosses can be narcissistic. I had a narcissistic boss that when I said, this makes me sad, they're like, well, if this makes you sad, I suggest blah, 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 because they were treating me less than. And so I'm like, this makes me sad. Because I know when someone's treating me less than I deserve to be treated, when they're trying to, just chastise me like I'm a child, and I'm not, to act like I'm not a equal, or mutual. And she's like, well, I said, that makes me sad, because they're like telling me something about subpar, and I'm like, I have never done this, accusing me of something I didn't do. And I'm like, that just makes me sad. What, that makes you sad, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, no, she did not. No, she did not. Yeah, that was out. Sula at Angela, people seem to love taking selfies and individualism, which seems like they're narcissists. And I don't know that they are, because when it was so weird. When I was a kid, a lot of people didn't want to take pictures or have pictures taken of them. So then I didn't want to have pictures taken of me. But when I had pictures taken of me, I didn't care if pictures were taken of me. So it's just really weird. And so a lot of our behaviors come from that we saw. Let me light my light back up again. A lot of the behaviors come from what we saw as children growing up. I don't know if it will light back up again. It's saying, to heck with you, Stacy. So anyway, those behaviors that we learned growing up, what imprinted us, what we liked and disliked. And our parents definitely had a role in us, what we liked and disliked, what we were allowed to like and dislike, right? Sometimes we didn't get to pick our own clothes. Sometimes we didn't get to pick our friends. Sometimes we didn't get to pick this or that. I mean, I can't say that that's my story. I got to pick my own friends pretty much most of the time. But John London, different from narcissism caused by early childhood insecurity. Yes. Yes. Well, what John London's saying, narcissism, we all have a tidbit of it in us. We all got a little bit of each of things. But the thing is when narcissism becomes predominant, that's dominant in the relationship, then it's going to be somebody being above somebody else, and it won't be a mutual relationship because this person is committed to not looking a certain way. It's all, kind of like they're afraid, their fears are higher. So, yeah, their survival is different. Their survival skills. We all have survival skills. So there's that. Yes, we all have survival skills. But some of us have healed survival skills. Oh, there we go. Some of us have healed the survival skills and turned them into tangible tools because we can do that. But some people just stay driven, and that's your ego. And the ego would be what would be carrying our narcissistic part. And the ego's not all bad. It's not all bad. Because we do need to protect ourselves to a degree. We can't just be totally vulnerable. But we also can't be rigid either. So finding this flexibility and flow, and knowing ourselves, that's where our autonomy comes in, of knowing ourselves, what we do want, what do I want? And then we can gravitate to that and not be trying to see, narcissists will make people try to conform to whatever it is their agenda is, when it's an unhealthy version of itself. Angela, baby boomers are the most narcissistic people in the world to me. That's my experience and opinion. I don't know which ones were. I have an ex that was, I don't know if he would be a baby boomer or what, but he definitely was narcissistic. Amy, wow. Epic, that's cool. I'm just saying an unhelpful mindset, Angela. Y'all be nice in here. Epic, be nice to Angela. Angela, y'all be nice to each other, because I don't know that we can just label one generation, because narcissism's been going on for a long time. Epic, do you want to look up narcissism? Because it's gone on a long time. It come from a Greek word, I believe, and so... Sula, I'm in Ireland. I wish I could hear half y'all talking here, most of y'all talking here, all these accents and stuff. It would be cool. I'm in Ireland, but in the USA, no offense, some women seem under pressure with surgery, money, owning lots of things. It seems empty to me, but I might be wrong as a female. I used to work with women getting surgery, and I believe that some of those surgeries can be very helpful. It can help people in their confidence. It's not the whole package to the confidence, because I was a mindset coach, a mental health coach with plastic surgeons. And there's some amazing, but and I think that people should be able to have a body that they've always wanted to have, and or a face, like I would like to have a facelift myself. I know y'all say I look young, so thank y'all, but I would love to have a facelift one of these days. And it's not that there's anything, I just would like to look fresher. And I work with a lot of people with that food addiction, and what happens sometimes is that then you end up with loose skin, and some of the loose skin can cause issues, rashes and things like this. And so I can understand totally wanting to get the liposuction and tummy tucks and all the weight loss surgeries that there are. There's people who were born with no butt. Maybe their culture, they don't get to have a behind, so maybe they want a BBL. It's not my thing, but I can totally understand why some people want to have a butt. The reality is that I believe that people do deserve the right. I don't think everybody needs these surgeries. I don't think that I think to each his own if they want surgeries. There is a thing to where people can become addicted to that, just like everything else, that they're not happy with themselves. So that's the most important component that I worked with, is being a mindset coach and mental health coach with plastic surgeons. It was such an honor to get to work with some amazing plastic surgeons, because they cared about their patients enough for their patients to know that just the surgery alone isn't going to fix you. Same with the weight loss doctors. I've gotten to work with a few, weight loss doctors, and the surgery alone isn't going to fix what the mind sees, you see. A lot of that is in the codependency, because there can be a lot of comparison in codependency. So anytime there's comparison, and the comparison doesn't even deal with surgeries, the thing is that some of those surgeries do allow a healing process that people have not thought about before, especially in codependency, once again, because a lot of people associated themselves with being the person who does take care of everything. When a person has a surgery, they're down for 6 weeks at least. Sometimes something happens and they end up being down longer than 6 weeks. So there's certain things, certain feelings that they're going to get to learn to feel, that if they were a human doing, meaning like codependent, and they're doing everything for everybody, they have to learn to ask for help. Maybe it's the surgery is going to be the catalyst for them to finally learn how to ask for help, because they can't. Because some people will keep doing and doing and doing until they can't. So even though it's a chosen surgery, just like when people have a surgery that's not chosen, there's some downtime. There's some esteem issues that go with that. When you're used to being active and you can't be active like you were, that restrictions. A lot of people, when I worked with people with surgery, it would be cool because they didn't realize how long those restrictions were. So I would meet with them right after surgery, at 1 week, and they're like, oh yeah, everything's great. Then at 2-3 weeks later, they're like, I'm just over it now. I'm just over it. But they still have restrictions, and I'm like, I understand that. So I always tell people, whether we're working with surgery, plastic surgery patients, or whether I'm working with people in weight loss, we're building mental muscles and emotional stamina, or whether I'm just coaching, period. We're building mental muscles and emotional stamina, because you're getting to know yourself. You're getting to know, because sometimes people just don't slow down until they have a surgery. So it's not all bad, the surgeries. There are people who abuse surgery too, though. Okay, Epic says, narcissism is personality style marked by strong focus on oneself and extreme need for praise and low empathy for others, and exists on a whole spectrum ranging from normal and healthy self-confidence. Yes, the world would be a better place without narcissists. There's no argument I can make against that. We've all dealt with them, right, John London? By definition, it's the healthy part of personality. It's not just all healthy. Everything has a yin and a yang to it. There's always, in this electromagnetic universe, anything can be from one extreme to the other. The thing is to find harmony in between that. to find the harmony in between. As some people might say in the serenity prayer, the wisdom to know the difference. Because sometimes we may be headstrong, got our feet and heels and nails dug into one thing. And do we need to do that? No. But do we need to just go along following the pack? No. So this is where your autonomy comes in. What works for you? And it's not just all about you. It's not about making people, because the thing about the codependency and the narcissist is that we're trying to get people to be this picture that we've created in our head of them and not allowing them to be who they truly are. Right, Angela? That's in a nut. And it doesn't matter, I don't think, what generation we're in or what. It's according to people's trauma because some of this stuff, gets passed down from generation to generation to generation, transgenerational trauma. Well, ego does have a part of narcissism in it. It does. And yeah, narcissism can be clinical. So, all right. Sula, lovely to hear surgeons took the whole person into account. They did. I worked with some amazing surgeons, and it was a real honor that they trusted us to help them, trusted me to help them with their patients, to help their patients prepare for surgery. Because a lot of people just think, oh, I'm just going to sign up for surgery. And they don't realize, okay, well, before surgery, there's certain things that you have to eliminate from your diet if you're on, certain medications. So you have to prepare to be ready to eliminate those things. And then after surgery, those restrictions if you're the person who's doing everything and you're flat on your behind, your self-worth takes a hit if you're using all the things that you can do to prove your worth. So I asked one patient, because sometimes when you have tummy tucks and liposuctions, the 360, then it would be a cut all the way around your body. And so sometimes in the back or the sides, people would sometimes get an opening, and it doesn't matter what surgeon you had or who you were. It's not a predictor. No one knows who and what when it's gonna happen to. And it's not that you did anything wrong, and it's not that the surgeon did anything wrong. These things just happen sometimes. So you may have to, wait. There may be a little gap, and you may have to wait before you can get in water or have the fun that you want to have. You can't go in the pool or the hot tub or whatever when you got that. And so some people would wait. And I asked one person, because we developed values. What values? What kind of things do you think you learned from this experience? What did you get to learn about yourself? And she said, I learned how to be content. I thought that was powerful, right? She learned how to be content through having to wait, because she didn't heal in 6 weeks. It took like over 3 months for her to heal, the incisions, the wounds all to heal. And so, yeah, we get to learn something. It's not just a instant fix. Lily, I've seen that a lot of guys in the gym have body dysmorphia and are never okay with how their bodies look. Yes, that too. All right, guys, y'all, let's don't be fighting over stuff. Narcissism to me is a mental health personality disorder. Like any mental health issue, you can learn about it and overcome. It's good to know, what we have a predisposition. And if we grew up with a parent who was narcissist, we have to watch and make sure that we're not exhibiting those traits. And we might sometimes, and we might catch ourselves, if we had that. Very interesting. There's so much pressure on. Yes. It's devolved into personal attacks. Time out. Epic, you and John both are attacking. Y'all stop it. Just stop it. Both y'all. I think you're attacking just as equal, Epic. And Angela, Epic. Just everybody has a right to be talking, but y'all be nice. Please keep the comments nice. All y'all. This is why we don't talk about that too much in here, because there's a lot of thoughts on it. So, wounded child. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. about the inner wounded child might be showing signs of codependency. Yes. Yes, exactly. And all of us have, have probably some kind of wounds, and maybe not all of us. I'm just saying, I've worked with people who grew up in all kinds of families. And some of them, the parents didn't talk. They didn't know there's a problem, and that might be considered healthy. But yet the person didn't learn how to express themselves because they didn't see that modeled, right? So, exactly. Thank you, Amy. Sula, do they have someone like you at the clinic pre-op? No, I was virtual, so I would meet people. I worked with these surgeons who received people from all over. One of them was a surgery center in Miami, and they're known for the BBLs. BBLs are very dangerous surgeries, those Brazilian butt lifts. And so they would have people fly in from Canada, to have surgery there because they really take extra precautions. So they were an amazing surgery clinic. And so the surgeons there, he's one of the top surgeons, and so he had us, but I worked virtually. So he would have people coming from all over the world to his place. So people would meet with me online. That way they could even be in the comfort of their own home post-op, So yeah, it was really cool. I loved doing that. So, yeah. And it was good to get to meet people. There's some people having plastic surgery that they've lost their breast. Some are breast cancer survivors. And I got to meet with a lot of people that were amazing people and stuff. So, all right, let me find my spot, y'all. I done lost my spot and all y'all fighting there. Epic. The term is thrown around a lot. That's right. We do not diagnose here. Kim, are you going to be Epic? You can't, y'all. Angela is, I don't like that. So let me see. All right. Thanks, Kim, for letting me know that, because I like Angela's input, and if y'all don't agree with somebody, that's okay. What I say earlier, let me go back to what I said earlier. All y'all listening. Mama's talking now. All right. What I said was, let me get it. We were talking about Aristotle. Do y'all remember what I said about Aristotle? Do y'all remember what I said about F. Scott Fitzgerald? And what I'm also going to tell you about the Course in Miracles is that because somebody don't agree with us, we don't have to, but we need to all be mindful. And Epic, you're kind of being rude too. And so I appreciate you. I think you're great, but sometimes when people are upsetting us, we end up turning out like what we're complaining at them for being. And I can't believe you put Angela out. Let me breathe. All right. So F. Scott Fitzgerald said, holding two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time. There's also a book called A Course in Miracles, which I like. Has any of y'all heard of that Course in Miracles? It was a good program till it wasn't, Kim. Exactly. I know, I just had to, yeah, it's not cool to put Angela in timeout. I know, Mom, he was a great surgeon. The mirror effect, Stacy. Yes, exactly, Amy. Stacy, I can't send you any message because Epic has been blocking my messages and disrespecting me and John Lennon. All right, good. I'm glad everything's handled now. And Epic's not moderating anymore because I can't have him putting people out that, yeah, thank y'all. Because what I was saying is that Course in Miracles is I have no thoughts and opinions on this. I know, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you're back, Angela. I'm sorry I didn't know that for a minute. You worked, so you're familiar with the Course in Miracles? So that's where I learned that I have no thoughts and opinions about this. Because a lot of us, we take that as our personal identity, as those opinions. And when we die, no one cares about our opinions. No one cares about my opinions today. I mean, I have my own opinions, and I don't need to force them on somebody. We can all agree to bury the hatchet now and know we all have differences of opinion. Absolutely. Our opinions are just our opinions, and they're subject to change. Thank you, Angela. I'm glad you're back, Angela. I found both comments interesting. I think we need to be open to one another. Exactly. That's what I was saying, Sula, because I was saying, I mean, they did, this happened. I've not studied it. Yeah, it's deep. I started studying it and I had to put it down because it's a big book and it's very deep. I studied another man, Michael Merdad, wrote a book about it, which it was much shorter, so that, to kind of give his context of it. But Marianne Williamson, she does a great context. Are you familiar with her? She does on A Course in Miracles. She has a great talk on it. So what I was saying, it was that words of Aristotle, it is the mark of an educated man to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Is we're not going to all accept each other's thoughts here. And that doesn't even matter. What matters is that we are able to continue to support each other, and we may not be able to, like a Cliff Notes version. Yes, exactly. It's deep, but I like that. I have no thoughts and opinions about this, because when we realize that our thoughts and opinions can change, we don't have to get locked and loaded in fights about our thoughts and opinions. I know he was getting a little worked up with that, wasn't he? Because, yeah, everything's good until it's not, and it's bad until it's not. And we all can have that, certainly as we're growing up, but that's the sign of maturity, is when we're able to not have to be like that. All narcissists have emotional immaturity, but not all people who have emotional immaturity are narcissists, is really the truth of it. Yes, the Cliff Notes. I do understand that. Thank you, Amy. So yeah, being able to say I have no thoughts or opinions on this when we disagree with something, because I have had things I didn't agree with, and when I was a kid, I didn't like broccoli. I like broccoli now. Sometimes our things change, our thoughts change, and that's okay. I'm glad I learned how to change my mind and not stay locked and loaded. Ego is healthy to a point. We have to have it. Our ego gives us our drive. It's just if we're driven by fear is when the ego becomes unhealthy. And then our soul. I like to think that the ego and the soul kind of ride together, because you can't be too vulnerable, and you can't be too much into yourself. You can't be too much into everybody else or too much into yourself. So that's where we come together in harmony, is I have to take care of myself, and it's like the airplane. You put your mask on first before you start messing with other people. But in codependency, sometimes people will be trying to put everybody else's mask on and not their own, and then complaining at everybody else that they don't have any air. Sula, this is a great discussion. Thank you so much, Sula. Thank you. A lot of great people in here. Everybody's great in here, and everybody's entitled to their opinions. Yes. So, Jason, I always try to keep my mind open. I may not agree with someone, but if you listen, sometimes you can see a new point of view you never saw before, and that's interesting. I think that too, Jason. Thank you for sharing that. I believe that too, and that's what I was talking about with F. Scott Fitzgerald and Aristotle and A Course in Miracles, and that's where we're able to understand that's emotional maturity, is when we can hold two ideas and not necessarily have to go to one extreme or the other. Yeah. So when we heal, it's like Aristotle, A Course in Miracles, and F. Scott Fitzgerald. And so what if our preferences were shut down, though? Where does that place our sense of identity? Because we all have preferences too. We have opinions, we have preferences. Do we need to impose them on everybody? No. but are we going to be gravitated toward what our opinions and preferences are? But does it make it necessarily balance is key? Absolutely. That's where harmony is, right, John London? There's harmony in between the ego and the soul. The ego is not all bad. It gives us our drive, and the soul gives us our direction. So it's about knowing, where do I want to go? And when I know where I want to go, I'm going to gravitate towards the people that are, doing what I want to do. Angela, we can disagree about preferences like coffee or tea, but if someone says that narcissism is healthy, you can't agree with that. Yeah. I don't know that we can, I would define it healthy, unhealthy, because there's certainly some very painful narcissism, but we all have it until we're a certain age with emotional maturity. It's emotional immaturity. We all have emotional immaturity. Some people go full force into the narcissism, and everyone with emotional immaturity does not have narcissism, but everyone with narcissism definitely has emotional immaturity. So, yeah. So what if our preferences were shut down, though? Where does that place our sense of identity and being okay? If you didn't get to experience your preferences, if I wouldn't have been able to roller skate, if I wouldn't have been able to dance, and some people weren't able to do that, whether it be from parents, religion, or what have you. And so that is suppressing. Yeah. Abuse is not healthy. And narcissists that's true. That's true, Angela. That's true. And I didn't want you to be put in timeout, because you say a lot of good things and bring up a lot of good points. And that is right. And it is a good point. So it has destroyed many lives. It's no fun to deal with. And there's a lot of healing that has to come from if you've dealt with, I had to deal with narcissistic abuse. It was abusive. And I had to heal from it too. Harmony, congruence, and finding a middle ground. Epic definitely thought narcissism, ego. Yeah, he was fighting, and yeah. Amy. Okay. Thank you so much for being here, Amy. I always enjoy you being here, and I hope you'll join us Wednesday too. And if you can't join Wednesday, hopefully you'll get to watch your replay, because I keep growing on these and expanding. Thank you so much, Angela. You always express very valuable comments and questions. I love your questions and comments, and I was sad to find that you were in timeout. I didn't know. I'm sitting here talking, and then I read the comments. I'm like, what? What? What happened here? Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you. You have a good night, okay? All right. So this is where we pick up some of the most obvious traits of codependency, is when what we loved was shut down, when we were taught that what we loved was not valuable. Then we took that as we're not valuable, right? Right, Jason? We'll think, I'm not valuable. If what I love isn't valuable, then, sometimes people will we may think they're trying to make us feel stupid, and they are trying to, oppose, All right, so this disturbs our regulation when we start feeling shut down. If our preferences were shut down, that place and sense of our identity and being okay, because we need to be able to express ourselves. If you love to dance, if you love to do something, you need to be able to express yourself. Hey, geez, Jaded Wasted, it's going pretty good. How's yours going? It could be better, but it could be worse. So I'm thankful it is. Yeah. And that's not about this live. That's just about my electricity at home. That's about, yeah. Yes, Angela, we do need to invest time and effort to recover. We do. Because it does. You can't just say, I'm abused by a narcissist, and then go on. Because there is so much there. We will second guess ourselves when we're abused by a narcissist. We do. We second guess ourselves. We don't know, because everything has been questioned within us. So this is where we pick up some of the most obvious traits of codependency, like people pleasing and caretaking being the most dominant ones. We may feel like a doormat. I know that I did when I was in my codependency, because I felt like I was doing everything and that everybody kept walking right over me and I wasn't even seen. But I had to learn to see myself, you see. So I always chose to be in relationships with people who were worse off than me. That's how I esteem myself. People who had it worse than I did, you know. So, and that still didn't work. I still didn't have the confidence that they would stay, even if I sold myself, whatever that was, in order to keep the relationship. I still ended up feeling abandoned because I did not heal my insecurities. You know, when you've been in narcissistic abusive relationships, you're insecure. Sometimes we grow up in those relationships. So we may be insecure. So when we're insecure, do we trust ourselves? No, we do not. So, yes, we are future generations. I know I don't create obligations with my daughter. My daughter's going to do what she's going to do, and I'm so glad that, you know, and sometimes people would say, you know, I have a friend that she's being mean to her daughter, and I'm not, you know, I'm like, and I feel sorry for her daughter because she's like trying to, you know, make her daughter be obligated to do things for her, and I don't want anybody to feel obligated to do anything for me. When we talked about want and need, you know, need comes from those obligations. So, in codependency, there were things I need to put energy, we need to put energy into ourselves, and I did not know what I wanted, what I alone liked, what I was good at, or, you know, what made others happy, you know. I only knew I didn't know what I was good at. I only knew how to make others happy. So I needed to learn this, not to save another person, for I always ended up lacking, wanting, and fearing abandonment, and manifested it too with all the energy I spent on it. I'm glad my therapist made me go to CODA, because that's codependency. She is precious. She's beautiful, and she's bold, and she's brilliant. My daughter is. So I'm glad my therapist made me go to CODA after my divorce and bankruptcy, because I told y'all I got addicted in shopping addiction and got a divorce and bankruptcy. Those things don't fix us. The people outside of ourselves aren't going to fix us. And codependency, a lot of times, maybe we're addicted to the fairy tale that somebody's going to save us. Somebody's going to help us, you know, just entertain us the whole time. We don't realize that we're trying to get people to entertain us and everything else, that they're supposed to be doing something just, you know. So I finally got to learn about myself and take the adventure, and it's my hope this adventure helps you too, and that it will help you put your pieces back together again. Thank you for those hearts. It was time for some hearts. So what we're going to be talking about this week, today we're talking about what did I learn? So when you look back at your learned behaviors, you know, what did I learn? How our early experiences became our personal reality. I know, Angela's amazing. We are all worthy as women to have a safe relationship, and men too, absolutely. We got some great men in here. There's John London and Ramon. Who else? Did Juice Jaded Wasted go away? Rusty was here. Sula. Yes. Thank y'all so much. Sula, Angela, Mom. All right, so Wednesday, what we're going to talk, Ramon is all right? Yeah, he's all right. Wednesday, we're going to talk about what do I need to be needed? Why do I need to be needed? Why do I need to be needed? I know they are amazing. I love this group. Why do I need to be needed? You know, I told y'all here a while back, I had a person that I had worked with, and they were moving along in their relationship. They used to have anxious attachment, and they were moving along in their relationship. And she said, you know, because if we want something different, we got to do something different. So she did. She learned to quit texting if they didn't text her in the morning when she thought they needed to text by. You know, she learned to not freak out when she didn't get those texts at certain times and things like this. She learned to be comfortable, to remember she was the prize. Well, then they got, you know, time went on, her and her fella, and they decided to move in together. And I told you, some of y'all may have heard this before, but then she said, well, this is weird. We are very valuable for sure. Yes. So, what was I saying? Grinch is on my lap singing, chatting. But, yeah. Oh, what I was saying was, she said, it feels weird because he doesn't need me to do things. And I said, well, that's a good thing, you know. And then later she said that she said to him flippantly, yeah, you're just probably moving in so you can be close to your friends. She said he looked at him, he looked at her all weird, and she's like, just joking. But she told me I wasn't joking. And I said, well, why did you say that? And she said, because, because that's the way it's always been. And I said, but isn't that interesting that you said a while ago that it was weird that you didn't have to be needed, and at the same time you're saying that you were used. I said, so do you see the connection now that when you're needed, you feel used? Yes, I loved that in here. I love that y'all all, you know, I know that we've all been through that, you know, and I try to be mindful and respectful of everybody's comments and experiences in here. And I apologize for all the discord that was going on earlier. I did take that moderator position away so somebody couldn't be put out that I didn't want to be put out, okay? So that kind of frazzled me a little bit because I didn't see that coming. It's like, what? So, yeah. John London, Angela, y'all still okay in here though, right? Good. All right. Friday, we're going to talk about what is mine to carry. You know, things I had to learn in my own codependency. I had to learn that everything's not all about me, that I don't have to do everything. If someone feels not needed, can they feel irrelevant in others' lives? Thanks, John London. Yes, a lot of people learn that their worth was through being needed, you know, and so maybe if we have to feel needed, we're not understanding our own self-worth, you know, because you do have worth. You were born with worth. It's not what you can do for others that give you your worth. It's when you have worth, you know, and acknowledging that worth within yourself, because you were born worthy, darling. Yes, exactly, Angela. Thank you. We are. So what I got to learn in codependency is that it's not all about me. That means when I'm saying it's not all about me, that means I don't have to do everything. So it does, you know, in fear that it's not going to get done. Sometimes there's some stuff I can learn to be like, oh, well, isn't that interesting? That it isn't indicative of who I am. I'm not the person who's going to clean my windows when y'all come into my house, because I don't think people are coming to see my windows. You know what I mean? So I'm not putting on airs. My house will probably be picked up pretty decently. I'll probably get Grinch's poop off the floor. I'm not going to clean my windows. Codependents think to themselves, if you need me, you won't leave me. Exactly, Angela, exactly. And the thing is they're still afraid of being left. I know I was still afraid of being left. I had to love my first love. And he would say, well, we're going to be together forever, aren't we? And I'd be like, I don't know. That's what I wanted. But I didn't have the confidence to say, I hope so. That's what I want. That's what I would say today. But back then, it was like I was afraid to look too excited about that. Anybody here been like that before? Afraid to look too excited about having what you wanted? Jason, I set the tablet down for a while and just listened. Well, thank you, Jason. I'm glad that you're here. Yeah. So, learning that it's not all about me. 2, learning about my expectations. there's reasonable expectations and there's not reasonable expectations. In emotional immaturity, we will want somebody to take care of us. We will want them to appreciate us. And that's not saying that appreciation isn't needed. I do believe in, showing others appreciation, but we have to appreciate ourselves. We can't just do everything that we do hoping to get appreciation for somebody else. Because when we know why we're doing it, when we're aligned with our intention and motivation of why we're doing it, instead of us just doing it for somebody else. See, as a codependent, you will be doing it for somebody else. But when we're aligned with our intention and motivation, we'll still have fun doing it, whether we get appreciated or not. That's not the goal of the game. Yes, forever is a long time, Mama. Yes, a bit like expect the worst and hope. Yes, because that's sending mixed messages. When we're, expect the worst and hoping for the best, that's not regulated, right? And so what we're doing is that we're not really living fully. It's okay to hope, but that's exactly it. We've talked about that. Expecting the worst, hoping for the best, waiting for the other shoe to fall, and when it rains, it pours. And these things that were imprinted in our mind, and that has built up these expectations. And so we're expecting the other shoe to fall a lot of times, so people are afraid to get happy about certain things. And when we accept life on life's terms, it's going to go up and come down, just like the breathing here we'll be doing here at the end. As things do go up and down, your heartbeat goes up and down. Life on life's terms goes up and down, and it's emotional immaturity or something that tells us that we're supposed to be happy all the time. We're not going to be happy all the time, because we wouldn't have growth if we were happy all the time. So there's got to be a little rain. So sometimes we may be crying. Sometimes divine order comes with tears, snot, and all of that. And it's not nice, but it's growth. Angela, we can't expect to receive validation and admiration from other people all the time. We need to give those. Exactly, Angela, exactly. We have to learn to appreciate ourselves for what we can do. And then we'll be aligned. People know that nowadays, like I used to be people pleasing, but people know nowadays when I do something, it's because I want to do it. If I don't do it, it's because I don't want to do it, Not that I'm afraid. We took fear out of the equation. So, yeah, Jason still will, but forever is possible. If it's the right person. My grandpa Haranda made it just sort of 60 years when he passed. Wow. We just have a day at a time. And we want to make sure that each day at a time we make it work. This is why it's important to know our intentions and motivations, because I know a lot of people get to the end of their days and they're like, I wish I woulda, shoulda, coulda. And I don't want that to be me, and I don't want that to be you either. So that's why we get here in this beautiful community, to be able to know that we're in alignment, not hoping for the best, but expecting the worst, because we're overcomers. A lot of people here are heroes. You are my heroes, heroines, because you're overcomers. A lot of us have been victims of something in here, but we didn't stay victims. Jason, that was beautiful. I know, right? Jason's amazing. I'm glad Jason's here too. I know a family that are very regulated to the point of stoic. Is that overregulation? What could be happening there? Maybe shamed for having emotions. Yeah. And that's very sad, because I talked about that a while ago. Sometimes people didn't see emotions expressed in the family, so they don't know how to get excited about something. It wasn't expressed any excitement, and maybe they had that fear of getting excited about something. I know that I've worked with people who had a fear of getting excited about something. So Mom said she's there, woulda, shoulda, coulda. See, I'm making sure that's not me. That's why I have to have my adventures. Because I don't want to look back someday and be like, oh, I wish I woulda did this. My aunt tells me, Stacy Renee, you're living my life. And then I had a friend that just died this year. And she told me, she's like, Stacy Renee, I wish I would have done what you're doing. She married who she thought was the love of her life. And she still told me, I wish I would have done what you're doing. you know. Okay, so our summary, we're going to summarize tonight, y'all. Is everybody good? And then we'll get into the breathing. What did you learn is our topic for tonight, because what you learned becomes the lens through which we experience the world. Done what you're doing. I'm gonna move to another country. I moved from one country to another country, and I never thought I could travel like that. That wasn't modeled to me either. I didn't see people, but my aunt wanted me to do certain things. She wanted to buy me luggage when I graduated so that I could do certain things. But I didn't do certain things because I lived in a limited world. When we're in codependency and we're performing for everybody else, we're living in lack and limitation, in that fear. And so in living in fear and lack and limitation, I didn't know that I could do the things that I could do. And I've gotten to have an amazing life. I've got to live in Texas, grow up in Texas, and I got to have children and a family in Texas. And I still have that. You see my mama's here, my beautiful mama. But I'm also living in Mexico for now, but I'm going to move to Europe next because there's so much I want to see in Europe. And I don't want to die wishing I would have seen that stuff because I lost a son at 18 years old. We never know when our last day is. I'm not trying to be morbid or nothing, but we need to live for today and live for ourselves and live for others too. Remember, we're a part of something. We're a part of something, but we can't wish that we would have done other things. I raised my kids. It's my turn to get to do things now, So I'm going to go to Europe and I'm going to go see some of the historical things in Italy, some of the philosophy things in Egypt, not in Egypt, but in Greece. And I'm going to go to many places and see a lot of things before I can't, because maybe I only got 10 years, maybe I got 20, but I've got a lot to do. Angela, Angela, thank you for talking about this interesting topic, Stacy. The best you can give to this world is your conversations about codependency and narcissism. Thank you, Angela, and thank you for being here. And I apologize about what happened earlier. I didn't catch it until I started. I'm like, what? And so, thank you. Thank you always for your being in here, because you always present interesting, thoughts and questions, and they're very valuable. Thank you, Jason. I think some people are just stoic, so it's not all bad. They may not show emotions the way we do, but that doesn't mean they don't feel happiness or excitement. It's just shown differently. And meet me. That's right, John Lennon. I'm going to come meet you. Let you show me around. That's exactly right. Yeah, I think sometimes people can just get in moods where they seem stoic, and sometimes people are just brought up that way. There's like the Kennedys, right? The Kennedys are known for their stoicism. And so thank you so much, Angela. So yeah, it's like, do we really get to live our full lives? As long as they're able to live their full lives. I was thinking of leaving Europe to go to USA. All right. Where are you at? Yeah, you told me where you were at. You're in Ireland. Yeah, it'll probably be a culture shock thing, USA, but it's fun. I believe people need to travel, and see things. We do get a different Ireland. I remembered that now. We get a different appreciation, because there's things that I miss about America too, but I just know that I can do this. There's things that I study and that I read about, and that I want to know more about. I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to feel the energy there and meet John London. I do look forward to meeting John London. Cruising, yes, Kim, cruising. See, you have to take you a Mediterranean cruise when I get over the pond. So, so what did you learn? Because what we learn becomes what we see, the lens of experience. So everything we know today has been shaped by what we've experienced before. We learned what made people happy. We learned what made them unhappy. We learned what brought acceptance, affection, nurturing, and belonging. And we also learned what seemed to threaten those things. Yeah, I've not been on a cruise. I'll have to do that one of these days. Europe definitely is my favorite continent. Feels like home for sure. Yes, there's so much history over there. That was one of my favorite subjects in school was history. Not that I can remember anything, but it was one of my favorite subjects. And I loved the historical looking buildings, sacred geometry, these kind of things. So sometimes we adapted in however we grew up or what was going on. We learned what made, people happy and unhappy in those things. So sometimes we adapted to that. Sometimes we became quieter. Sometimes we became helpful. Sometimes we learned to anticipate other people's needs. Sometimes we learned to make people happy. We learned to avoid disappointing people. We learned to take care of everyone else. We may have even learned to measure our own worth by how much someone else needed us. None of that means something was wrong with us. What we were learning, that's all. So the problem comes when something we learned in the past becomes the only way we know how to live in the present. That's where perception comes in. We don't necessarily see the world as it is. We experience the world through the lens or through what we've learned about it. Home is a place where you are with the people and animals that love you. Grinch is your home, Stacy. He is. I probably am codependent with Grinch. But I know he's pretty codependent, but he's a good baby. He's sitting on my leg again. He likes sitting here on this. He gets on my leg and he likes the tablecloths there. Probably the air conditioning that he doesn't really like. Thank you, Angela. So we don't necessarily see the world as it is. We experience the world through what we have learned about it, and that can make our personal reality feel like an absolute truth. And this is where I love Aristotle's idea. Once again, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. You love the old cathedrals and would love to go to Europe to see. I know, me too. Me too, Jason. I am going to see that. I am. I study a lot of the mystical things, like from Rome to Greece and Egypt too, but I don't know if I'll go to Egypt because the female has to go with I have to have a tour guide thing and all this, so we'll see. But I want to go to England. I want to go to England, meet John London. I want to go to Germany and get a cuckoo clock. I used to have a cuckoo clock, but I don't anymore. And I want to go to Morocco and get some rugs, because when I can't go anywhere, I'm going to sit around and look at all these things and see all my adventures and be like, yeah, that's what my home is going to be made of, just like Angela said, my adventures. And I got my stuff from Texas I'm taking with me. I've got my wind chimes and my hammock. One of these days, I hope to be able to take a European cruise or one to Hawaii. There you go. I got to go to Hawaii with Mama. So we experience the world through what we've learned about it. And that can make our personal reality feel like an absolute truth. Sometimes we think it's our reality if we're feeling low, if we're feeling like we're not enough. We think that's our personal reality, but it's not. So I talked about Aristotle. We can learn to hold an idea without immediately agreeing with it, fighting it, judging it, or making it wrong. Or Alaska. I always think of Sandra Bullock in that movie where she's like, Alaska. I don't want to go to Alaska. It's too cold. I hear it's beautiful, though. Come on to Europe, and you'll love Hawaii, but it's expensive. Sula, Alaska is supposed. I know. I've heard it's amazing too. I love the idea of saying I have no thoughts or opinions about this. And I know when I dealt with a narcissist, like Angela was talking about, when I dealt with a narcissist, they try to dig at you all the time. It's very emotionally abusive. And I would have to walk through the room and say, I have no thoughts or opinions about this. I have no thoughts or opinions about this, because they wanted me to get in a fight with them. That's what they wanted. They would be trying to, bait me into a fight. And I would just have to say, I have no thoughts or opinions on this. And I really wasn't living a full life, because I should be able to have thoughts and opinions and express it. She'll have a well of a time? Yes. And hopefully when you visit John London, you'll get some authentic fish and chips. Absolutely, John London. A traditional Sunday lunch roast dinner. Excellent. I look forward to it. That'll be cool. All right. when we say I don't have no thoughts and opinions about this, it's not because we don't care. It's because we don't have to turn every difference into a judgment, comparison, or a power struggle. So sometimes our need to be right, our need to prove ourselves better, can be another way of that establishing our own worth. So this becomes especially interesting when we begin talking about codependency. The Yorkshire pudding. Walking on eggshells and becoming exactly, Sula, exactly. Not even living a half life, not even there. Yeah, Strength Badri, hello, it's good to see you. Yeah, drink some tea with John London. Yes, I'll be able to have some tea. In Texas, we drink iced tea, but I've gotten used to, I don't have to have ice with it. So, people pleasing and caretaking aren't necessarily random behaviors. They can be adaptations. And if I learned that making someone else happy helped me feel accepted, then making you happy may become a part of how I know I'm okay. You see, when we think that if another person's I know how my therapist knew I was codependent, because if I asked somebody, or because when she asked me, Stacy, how are you doing? I'd be like, well, this is happening and this person's doing this. Underrated. I can't wait to have some. And I hear over there, the Indian food is really good too over there. Hello, Muglov. It's good to see you. You been working? So if I learned being needed gave me value, then I may unconsciously choose relationships where someone needs rescuing, if we think that way. I know this one personally. I repeated and chose relationships with people who were worse off than I was, because if I could help them, I could esteem myself. Yay, congratulations, Maglov. That's why you're a happy guy, huh? Congratulations. We're super excited for you. That's amazing. I remember when you were in the chats before and you were looking for a job, and now look at all the opportunities you're getting. Jason, when someone tries to start an argument with me, I love grinning and saying, all right, it does get on real mad, doesn't it, Jason? Sometimes when people are mean to me, I tell y'all that I ask them, why did you say that? When people say something to me in a throw it off way, I'll be like, why did you say that like that? And I've got a smile on my face. And what they're wanting is a fight, because they're not in a good mood, and they're probably looking for proof. But I'm not going to give them their proof, whatever their proof might be. Yes, codependents only have transactional. Yes, they want something. They don't realize they're manipulating, because they're just trying to be nice, but they're manipulating. I had to learn that. It's creating an obligation. Because they're wanting somebody to appreciate them. But you're right, they have to appreciate themselves first. It's really sad for both codependents, and everything, because it's sad, is that they're trying to manipulate. And so if we can break that cycle, like I said, I had to learn it wasn't all about me. How people behave isn't all about me. I don't have to rescue everybody. I don't have to do all of this. It's not all about me. If I don't do it, then somebody else will, and that's okay sometimes. I don't have to worry that I'm not going to be important if I don't do it, right? So that's what I had to learn. I had to learn about expectations, that if I want something, I have to be able to express what I want, and I might get rejected, and then I get to make a choice on how do I feel about that. Do I get to have emotional maturity and not get upset? Yes. Yes, I get to have emotional maturity and not get upset, but I get to make a choice. It depends on what the rejection is, right? Some rejections will be like, okay, thanks. And then some rejections will be like, well, I might have to do something else. Thank you, McGlove. I did my nails myself. They're natural nails. I just polished them. That's all I had to do. So, and that's the same with my hair. I don't do anything to my hair. I cut my own hair too. So, yep. So I thought I was helping people. But underneath that, I was trying to find something in myself when I was doing that. you know, and it didn't work. I could give more, I could sacrifice more, I could become whatever I thought someone else needed me to be, but I still didn't believe that what they would say. I didn't believe they would stay, because I was trying to heal my insecurity by saving another person. And what I eventually had to learn was more difficult, that I needed to learn myself. Ramon, when your kids would say, I hate you, I would say, good for you. No, it's not. Yeah, my daughter would tell me, I hate you, and I'd be like, okay. She always tells me, and she used to she would tell her friends like in her 20s, because she would get in a fight and yell at me and stuff, and I'd be like, I understand you're angry, but you need to go to your room and calm down and cool down, because I'm not going to talk to you when you're like this. I'm not going to participate in this. And you would tell her friends, she'd make me so mad because I would be wanting to get in a fight and she wouldn't get in a fight with me. Angela, we all have been rejected in life. We don't have to fear it, right? But sometimes when we even grow up in families to where they are like, well, they're trying to protect you from rejection. Some people grew up in families where they were trying to protect them from rejection. And so then they think that rejection is a lot worse than it actually is, right? I've seen that. Yeah. So what I eventually had to learn was much more difficult, that I needed to learn myself. What did I like? What was I good at? And even though I was good at some things, I didn't do it, So I had to learn to do it for me, that I was enough. What did I want? Who was I when I wasn't making someone else happy? That became my adventure. And that's where I want to take that this week, is not blaming the people who taught us, not toward blaming ourselves for what we learned, but toward becoming curious enough to ask, is this who I am, or is this something I learned I had to be? Right? So here's just a few questions before we get into the breathing to know more about codependency. Do I feel responsible for other people's feelings? Do I have difficulty saying no without feeling guilty? Because the reality is you're not going to please everybody all the time anyway, even when you're people pleasing. Jason, I'm trying to not take rejections personally. When I look back at the rejections I received, I can see it was for the better. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good job, Ramon. You get a star. Yes, I'm good with rejections now. It's just like, okay. So, do I automatically try to fix things when someone I love is struggling? Do I make excuses for someone else's behavior so I don't have to face what it means? Remember when I told y'all I didn't know what, oh my God. Do you remember when I told y'all in the codependency meeting, I didn't know what a codependent relapse would look like, and that lady come in with a black eye? People do not need to be abusing us. No. No. Good. So do I know what everyone else needs but struggle to know what I need? Because codependents will be trying to tell people what they need, and maybe they're not even acknowledging their own. So I had to learn in codependency too, what's my business, God's business, and somebody else's business. And I had to learn to stay in my business, because fixing somebody else was not going to fix me. I had to fix me. Nobody else was going to fix me because I fixed them. See, that's transactional, like Angela was saying. So do I know what everyone else needs? Okay, but struggle. Do I feel more valuable when someone needs me? Do I confuse being needed with being loved? Do I become anxious when someone is upset with me, even when I haven't done anything wrong? Exactly, Angela. Exactly. Do I abandon my own preferences to keep peace in a relationship? Doing good, Ramon. Doing good. Do I find myself thinking, if I don't do it, nobody will? Do I feel guilty when I allow another adult to experience the consequences of their own choices? Sometimes, if I don't do it, nobody will. Is that the one? Oh, Kim. She's awful quiet right now, isn't she? Where's she at? Is she walking? So if you do answer yes to any of those, it's a miracle relationships work considering. I know, right? And that's the thing is that when we're too busy trying to fit into relationships that are not for us, we're not being open for the relationships that are for us. It took me a long time to learn that. She's outside, tending to the garden, the beautiful garden. My glove, who's going to do things for an individual? The same individual, nobody outside of each individual, right? Yeah. It's okay to ask for help. It's not okay to depend on somebody else to give you your value, validation, but it is okay to ask for help. You're not too much or you're not enough because you have to ask for help sometimes. But that codependent needs to learn that too, that there's, to ask for help. If I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. Well, did you ask? See, that's the thing. Did you ask? Because if they don't feel valuable or worthy, they're not going to ask. We have to learn to use our big girl and big boy words and ask for what we need. Jason, I'm guilty of all of them, but I'm working on reversing them. Good job, Jason, because we all are a work in progress. Yes, we are. Ask but don't expect. Yeah, I had to let go of those expectations, reasonable and unreasonable. Because that's where, sometimes someone said earlier that, Jason, I think, said earlier that some of the things he didn't get turned out to be a good thing, So none of these questions mean that something's wrong with you, though. That's the thing. They simply give you something to notice, because if you learned that love meant keeping somebody else happy, then of course saying no might feel unsafe. If you learned that being needed meant being valuable, then letting somebody struggle might feel unsafe. If you learned that conflict meant rejection, then somebody else's disappointment might feel unsafe. So your body may be responding to what it learned, not necessarily what's happening right now. So are y'all ready to move into breathing? So if I had those traits. Did that, and there is freedom, just like Jason said earlier, a lot of freedom. John London, all right, you get some blessed and regenerated rest. We're about to breathe. You sure you don't want to breathe with us? You don't have to breathe with us. You can breathe. Get you some rest. I know that it's late there. I don't even stay up that late. Oh no, Ramon, just you don't have to wait for four spaces. Here we go. Here we grow. I was sticking to this seat. We'll breathe. All right, here we grow. So I want you to just think about this as you breathe in. Instead of trying to figure everything out, we're going to just breathe in. It's safe to be me. Breathe that in. Golden milk time, absolutely. I don't have to fix anything right now. I don't have to make anybody happy right now. I don't have to figure out what somebody else needs. For these moments, there's nothing to rescue. Just breathe. Okay, so here we grow. Thank y'all so much for being here. I'm going to be back Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. if you're around and about, but if not, catch the replay, okay? And I'll be back Friday at 6. What does it say? Yes, let's breathe. So let's just take that deep breath in, our security. Breathing in, we are secure. So breathe in. Hold it. And release. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Two more. Breathe in. last one. Breathe. Hold it. And release. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your evening. Good night, John London. Good night, Angela. Thank you so much. You are very welcome. That's why I make my notes, because your comments are very valuable to me, all of you. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here, and I get excited when I see you all come in here. So thank you. I hope to see you Wednesday, and if not Wednesday, I look forward to seeing you Friday. And so I'm so glad you're here too. Thank you. Ramon, give Kim a hug for me. I'll see her tomorrow night. Maybe I'll see her here. Maybe I'll see her at the other house. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Y'all have some pleasant dreams. There she is. There's my girl. Good night, darling. Good night, y'all. I love you. You are very welcome, Jason. You're very welcome. I look forward to seeing you Wednesday and maybe Friday, or Wednesday or Friday, Ramon. I'm glad you could pass on your wisdom too, Ramon. We appreciate you. Everyone give Kim some hearts for being a great moderator. She's amazing. So thank you so much. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. Love you. Good night.